Heavens to Betsy, Part 3, Decoding the Divine. After establishing the impossibility of these acts, now we search for the meaning behind them. The explanation again must match the phenomenon, the evidence. In each circumstance, the mutilated animal is left behind. Why? Scavengers from coyotes to flies are somehow stopped from feeding. Lights signal in the sky. Again, why? The natural assumption is that it wants the blood and organs for some purpose, but the natural reaction is wrong. Each of these details fits one framework. The mutilation is a visual display. The animal is never taken and always left because its condition is the message. The scavengers are blocked to preserve the display, its impossibility unspoiled by less precise beings. The lights, lures to guarantee that the visual is received and the sight is striking. Peeled skin from the face of an animal that was hours ago fully alive and robust. The mutilator intends to terrify. Beyond fear, the demonstration could represent a symbol of the treatment of many domesticated livestock. Cold, impersonal dissection, like industrial processing. The same as an anonymous cow moved from feedlot to slaughterhouse. This is not a treatise on the evils of carnivory, just an interpretation of what the message might be. It acts as a mirror revealing us to ourselves. Humans are psychologically horrified by something else showing them what they already do to these animals. And there is logic in this process beyond emotional appeal. Each animal targeted serves as a historical marker. Consider Snippy the horse. In 1967, it began the flurry of wide-ranging reports of livestock mutilations. Did this death indicate that horses were consumed in that location historically? Yes. Checking the record, there is substantial evidence that the Apache tribe consumed horses in the San Luis Valley. A perfect match in location and replacement of hunting by domesticated horses. The pattern emerges. In 1988, a man was mutilated and found bloodless near Guaraparanga Reservoir in southern Brazil. At first, this seems to challenge the architecture of the theory, at least until the history of the region is understood. For thousands of years, the Tupinambá tribe actively hunted and consumed members of the Tupiniquim, a rival tribe. Hans Staden, a German Huguenot, found out in person when he was captured by the Tupinambá and then documented it in his book after he escaped, providing a first-hand account of this dynamic. When Portuguese colonizers settled in fragmented, poorly defended coastal camps, the Tupinambá abandoned their hunt in favor of the easier game. The autopsy of the man mutilated centuries later was written in Portuguese. This again seems to fit the pattern. Every victim represents the type or species which historically displaced a long-term hunting relationship. The pattern is relentless. Around the world, the same process repeats regardless of species. The domesticated replacement for wild hunting is eventually mutilated in the same geographic location where the replacement took place. The consistency is staggering in spatial and temporal scope. Like a massive puzzle, all the pieces now fit together. From bison hunting in North America to the guanaco in Argentina, both were ousted by cattle. To the Aborigines hunting emus, wallabies, and kangaroos in Australia for tens of thousands of years, and the peccary and cannibalism in South Brazil. Each were replaced by cattle and sheep. And more still, the auroch and red deer in the UK, both supplanted by sheep. These locations are mutilation hotspots, the only known mutilation locations on Earth. The pattern is maintained with remarkable consistency like a law of nature. As established in Part 2, these acts are not the result of a corporeal process. The speed, stealth, and absolute perfection across centuries require a cause outside the current limits of physics. In 2021, an Australian veterinarian, after witnessing the impossible precision, stated on the record, "These cuts are so precise that I strongly doubt even an experienced worker from the local abattoir could make wounds that are so exact." Specifically noting that the removal of the third stomach without disturbing the rumen or the reticulum was nearly impossible without spilling contents or any blood. Add that to the lack of footprints, no witnesses, blocked scavengers and lights in the sky. When that level of perfection spans decades globally, it becomes obvious that no man, woman, or scalpel could accomplish this even once. If it is a spiritual or divine process, then what can we say about it? Which myth fits? One comes to mind immediately for multiple reasons. Artemis, the Greek goddess of the hunt, with her enduring protection of wild animals, vengeful tactics, and total precision, is one possibility. More than any other divine being, the features of this phenomenon fit her personality and motivations. She's demonstrably violent when crossed, as seen in the tale of Actaeon, who she turned into a stag as punishment for simply seeing her. She acted mercilessly, with maximum vengeance, just like the physical features of the mutilations. As guardian of wildlife and the sacred hunt, more than any other spiritual force, she is the least likely to ignore these violations of nature. To be clear, I am not saying it is Artemis. I'm saying it's like Artemis. And do not allow this speculation to distract from the established patterns at hand. They are global, and light has been shown where darkness once was. Forces are operating that require new thinking. The exacting and impeccable nature manifests at the level of the organism and again at the continental level. In North America, mutilations mark the historical distribution of bison herds, tracing the boundary one after another. In Oregon, this is seen most clearly where mutilations between 2019 and 2024 literally drew the historic bison line north to south through the middle of the state. It was screaming to be transcribed and understood. The probability of these events is now entirely predictable with three simple variables. If each condition is fulfilled in the same place, then like clockwork, mutilations will eventually happen. First, there must have been repeated hunting of a prey animal in a given area. Once a critical time span is reached with consistent hunting of that prey, then replacement in that same area potentiates mutilations if the next two conditions are also met. Second, mutilations will become more frequent when that sacred hunting is replaced more rapidly. The quicker it happens, the more mutilations will occur. Third, the mutilations become more numerous as the replacing species is treated in a more hands-off industrial manner. Pastoral nomadic herding will cancel out the other two conditions and yield zero mutilations since the treatment is non-industrial. For example, the Sami herding reindeer in Fennoscandia. Here, historical hunting turned into livestock management without mutilations because of the manner of processing. But when livestock are managed in an increasingly industrial way, the mutilation rate increases proportionally. The interaction of these variables is summarized in an equation, the results of which are called the mutilation rate index. It largely predicts the mutilation rates that are observed globally. You can use it to generate a risk index for any location on Earth, and I've described that below this video. The consistency of this entire process seemed like clues meant to be understood. From an omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent entity. Now that it is understood, will discussing it be enough? Or does change need to sweep through the most industrialized systems of livestock processing to avoid further disruption and loss? Time will tell. But a very heavy coincidence also exists. In Argentina, Australia, and North America, the potential for cataclysm is more ripe than anywhere else on Earth, and these are the mutilation epicenters. In North America, you have the Yellowstone supervolcano. There is a tremendous capacity for seismic activity in Argentina, and Australia is ripe for continent-scale fires. Is this a coincidence? Perhaps, but it's quite a coincidence if so. Time will tell. For now, the shocking realization that this process was always a performance meant to portray a consistent motive and obvious capabilities beyond human capacity must resonate with all who consider the evidence. Forces beyond material understanding were responding to violations of sacred hunting relationships all around the world, and the industrial processing of animals. Since June 4th, in northern Argentina, there has not been another single mutilation. So, as I mentioned earlier, it seems to have paused. How long that pause lasts, I do not know. What will happen after the pause, I also don't know. In fact, all of this is speculative in nature, but the patterns are so remarkably consistent, the mutilation logic never deviated from, that it is worth considering. Thank you for your time.